Hey there, I'm Elizabeth Henson. Welcome to the Messy Success Podcast, where I'm helping creative dreamers and overachievers tackle business and life. After 6 years of being my own boss, I finally unraveled a tiny bit of what it takes to survive in this amazing world of being an overly creative entrepreneur. I'm your business bestie, here to help you with all those big ideas and to normalize some of the day-to-day struggles that we all share. My mission is simple. I want more women to make a living doing what they love and to feel good about themselves in the process. The best way to start? We can't do it alone. So welcome. I hope you'll hang out with me here where it's totally okay to be messy. Hi, you guys. How's it going? Elizabeth here. I am so excited about this episode. So this is really cool. So I was thinking last week about what episode I wanted to put out. I've got a really exciting one coming up for you guys in the queue. I've got some stuff I wanted to record, but I didn't have the amount of time that I was hoping for. So I was like, what is an old episode that I could repurpose or bring back? And the perfect thing happened. So episode 32, I shared the secrets of going full-time. And I mentioned one of my Shine Elite students who kind of requested that as a podcast topic. Well, guess what? That student did go full-time. She now owns her own business. And I asked her to kind of reflect on the last year because she's coming up on her anniversary of being full-time. She put in her notice in October, and then she was full-time in November with her own business. And a lot of you guys might know Jessica Norrell, but I asked her to reflect a little bit on the last year and then to record some of her thoughts about, going full-time, being full-time, and just bring this episode full circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replay episode 32. It's not a super long episode, so I definitely recommend re-listening to this first segment. If you've been with me for a while and you remember this episode, then you can kind of skip to about the 20-minute mark, and then I will insert Jessica's reflection that she sent to me, and this is going to be super neat to just bring this all full circle and share with you guys. Hello, and welcome to the Messy Success Podcast for another week, another episode. I'm so excited. So today's episode is very special. I feel like I am custom creating this episode for one of my Shine Elite students right now who a couple of weeks ago actually said, you know what I'd really like to hear you talk about on the podcast? I'd really like to hear you talk about going full-time and what it looked like to quit a day job and then become a full-time entrepreneur or a full-time wedding photographer turned business coach, all the things, right? And I can't believe that I have been full-time for like 4 years, going on 5 years now. That is crazy to me. And when I was going through this change, I talked about it a lot. I mean, it was no secret that I was doing it. It was no secret that I was creating a business on the side. And I shared about it a lot. I think I did like a 1-year check-in on the blog. So I feel like, it's one of those things in my journey that I've talked about. But it's funny how, we see things that we've done. But the truth is, like, we can continue to show up and talk about these things. And new people are going to hear every time. And we're going to change and we're going to learn. Oh my gosh, the amount that I have learned and grown in the past 6 months is incredible. And the advice that I would give someone about going full time right now versus the advice I would have given a year ago is actually pretty different. So I think that it's so cool that she asked me this. And I mean, gosh, what a great episode to talk about going full-time and quitting your day job, because I know there's so many of you listening that have day jobs that would love to go full-time, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, but you'd like to make more of a salary. I mean, that's kind of the same thing, right? To go from unemployed to having, a pretty badass salary, like that's a step in itself. It's kind of the same type of momentum and same type of decisions that you have to make to go from zero to salary as you do from quitting a day job to salary, right? There just might be a different number in mind. Like if you don't need your salary to survive, You might not need to make the same salary as someone who's going to quit their day job, but it's still the same mindset. It's still the same shift and the same momentum. So I'm really excited to dig in and to share about this. And my Shine Elite student makes great money at her day job. So the fact that she's even kind of considering, making this leap is so incredible. And I just love helping people with this, because when I first started imagining my life without a day job, being my own boss, it felt pretty unattainable, right? But over time, it started to become more clear and more attainable and more clear and more attainable. And I've been talking and teaching a lot today, so I feel like I'm starting the podcast off a little bit out of breath already, so bear with me. You guys know that I'm pregnant now. The secret is out. Oh my gosh, and I can't believe I didn't mention it already, but we're having a boy. We posted it on Instagram and Facebook over the weekend. We're having a boy. We're so excited. I cannot believe it. I feel like somebody's playing a trick on me and that it's not really a boy. So hang in there with me as I have a little more short of breath. I've had a long day of teaching already. So I've just been talking and talking and talking, but I really wanted to get this episode in today because I'm so excited to share about it. So I'm going to try to break this down into 3 pieces, okay? The first piece, if you think you want to go full time, is that you have to get out of this place of, I'd really like to I'm going to, okay? There's a mindset shift that has to happen when you say you want to quit your day job, and that you're visualizing it and you're dreaming it, but you have to shift your mind to believe that it's a reality. And that's why one of the first things that I always tell people to do is to have a quit date. I was a teacher, so I feel like my quit date kind of happened naturally. I knew I'd either want to do the next school year or I wouldn't. I'd want to come back after summer or I wouldn't. So that kind of pushed me into having an easier time setting a quit date. So I was like, okay, well, by May, if I'm making my salary, then I'm going to go ahead and do it, but because I had that date in my mind, I was constantly working towards it. And if we don't take any steps to make that dream a reality, it's going to continue to be a dream. So the first thing that you can do is to set a quit date. And what's the worst that could happen? You might change it. You might not meet it. But even if it's 1 year out, 2 years out, 5 years out, if you write it down in your calendar or on your wall or somewhere that at this date you are going to quit your job and you're going to go full time into your creative business, you're going to work towards it completely differently than if you live in the land of one day I'd like to, okay? Because if we continue to say one day I'd like to, 5 years later, we're going to still be saying one day I'd like to. I mean, think about all those house projects that you say that sentence. One day I'd like to remodel the bathroom. One day I'd like to paint the house. One day I'd like to get new carpets, right? What changes from that statement to when you actually do get new carpets? There's a plan and a date and a purchase. Steps happen, right? So big life decisions are the same way. We have to actually start putting things into motion for it to happen. And I know that sounds so simple, but having a quit date and working backwards are a huge piece of the puzzle. And something that keeps popping up for me lately that I keep hearing over and over again is one thing that really separates super successful entrepreneurs is that they're just better decision makers, right? So the biggest part of the battle of going full time is just to make that decision, or at least make the decision to work towards it. If that quit date comes and you're not ready yet, nobody is going to cut off your arm for you to follow through, right? You can change the date. You can change the goal. We can change our goal at any moment in time. But if we don't actually make a physical decision for things to happen, then they're not going to. They're going to live in the one day I'd really like to land. And I keep thinking about that and how I keep hearing it, that entrepreneurs are just really good at making decisions. And it's helping me in every little place of my business to just make the decision. I want a new website. Okay, make the decision and do it rather than just sitting back and saying, I want, right? So that is step 1, is to set a date and make the decision. Once the decision is made, you'll have so much more clarity in the roadmap, okay? And get out of the I'd really like to land. Get out of dreamy land and make it a reality. Instead of one day I'd like to go full time, say, yes, I do plan on going full time. And I think I'm going to do it in the next year or 2. But in the back of your mind, you're like, that's happening by June 15th or whatever you tell yourself. Okay, my next category, my next topic, if you're trying to go full time, is I want you to play out a bunch of different worst case scenarios, because ultimately what's stopping you or what's holding you back in some way, shape, or form is fear. It's fear-based decisions. It's fear-based reasons that are holding you back from making that decision to set a quit date. So whenever I feel the fear creeping in, it helps me to walk through worst case scenarios. So worst case scenario, my job fires me tomorrow. What would I do? Okay, walk yourself through the steps of what you would do, because that could happen. That could happen to any of us, right? You could lose your job. You never know. Worst case scenario, what happens if I quit my job and I do this thing and I don't make any money? Okay, what are some ways we can combat that fear? Okay, maybe it means saving up a nest egg. Maybe it means instead of quitting your job completely, you go part-time, or you search for a job that's more compatible with your business. But playing out the worst case scenarios allows us to talk ourselves through the fears or the plans that need to happen for that to no longer be a fear. But if we don't face the worst case scenarios, then we're going to continue to just live in fear. But I constantly do that when I'm making decisions, like, well, what's the worst that would happen if I do this? What's the worst that would happen if I don't? What's the worst thing that would happen if you don't quit your day job? You're going to be stuck in that job for who knows how long. So, a lot of times I'll tell people, like, at the very least, like, just start looking for a different job that makes you happier and maybe is more compatible with having a side hustle. Some jobs are not super compatible with having a side hustle. So what can you do that would help you grow that business? Because we have to be constantly taking steps and moving in that direction if we actually want to get there. Another thing that I can't take credit for, because James Wedmore has been teaching this over and over and over, and it's just become a new motto of my life, is that if you want to be something, if you want to be a full-time entrepreneur, if you want to have your own business, you have to start acting as if you are already that person. And that has been so huge for me, because I know I've talked on here the last however many episodes, that I'm in a transition right now, and that yes, I'm still shooting weddings, but I don't want to be shooting weddings in my 40s, or at least I don't want to be relying on that to be my main source of income. So how can I go ahead and start being the entrepreneur who's not shooting weddings? Like, that's a big deal for me, right? To have to completely change the way that I show up every day, because I was having to show up in a way that would help book me more weddings. And now I'm having to show up totally differently, all because 4 years from now, I want my life to look different. So I'm going to go ahead and start being that person that I need to be, that's a successful entrepreneur that doesn't have to rely on weddings for her income. And that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not because I don't want to shoot a wedding tomorrow. I'm fine with shooting weddings tomorrow. I'm shooting weddings all year. I'm shooting weddings into 2020. But if I don't start making some of these changes now, that 40 will creep up on me and I won't have a plan, and I will have just been sitting in this I wish land. So we have to actually show up as the person that we want to be before we actually are that person. But that's how we become that person. So if you want to quit your day job and be a full-time entrepreneur, you've got to start talking to yourself like you're already that person. I mean, when I was about to quit teaching, everyone in that building knew I had a photography business. I was shooting weddings for some of the other teachers' children in the building. Everyone knew. It was no secret that I was doing this thing on the side. Now, they may not have predicted that I would go full time. And a couple of them, I think, still think that I just quit to be a stay-at-home mom. But, I had to present myself and act like myself within myself, looking in the mirror, that I was already a successful wedding photographer, so that when I quit my day job, that I would just be an even more successful wedding photographer. And I knew that's what would happen. And because I knew that's what would happen, because that's the way that I was treating myself, that's what did happen. Like, it sounds so simple. Like, we overcomplicate things, right? We overcomplicate the entire process of quitting a job, and we make it this big unattainable thing, when really all we have to do is be that person. Thank you, James Wedmore, for teaching me that. And I'm still working on it and learning it every single day. So those are kind of my 3 woo-woo, meat and potato things that you need to do to go full-time. So step 1 is make the decision, right? Make the decision of what you want your life to look like. There's so much freedom and clarity and freedom in knowing what we really want. Another one of my Shine Elite students said she wants more momentum and bigger projects. So I'm like, okay, that's great. What does that mean? What exactly is more momentum? Is that more Instagram followers? Is that more social media engagement? Is that more inquiries in your inbox? Probably all the above, right? But if we don't break that word down into something measurable, it makes it so much harder to accomplish. But if we break it down into something that's measurable, then we can have that feeling of accomplishment when we start to see more, right? So the freedom in the decision, the freedom of saying, I am going to go full time. And in your mind, knowing that you have a date, right? You don't have to say it out loud. Say it out loud to somebody, but you don't have to say it out loud to every person you meet. But tell someone, tell your business BFF, your spouse, whoever. Put it on your wall so you constantly have to look at it. And if you already are at home, like I mentioned in the beginning, maybe you want to hit an income goal, right? One of my students just wants to hit her income goal. So make that your goal. By June of 2020, I'm going to be making, $8K a month or whatever your goal might be. But if we don't write it down and we don't make it real, then we're going to drag our feet on working towards it. The second thing was to play out all the worst case scenarios. If you play out the worst case scenarios, then you can help to break down some of those fears. And they're probably not going to be as bad as you would think. And then the third thing was to be that person that you need to be. Be the person that you see yourself as in 5 years. And the quickest way from point A to point B is to acknowledge that you're already that person and to start stepping into that, right? So woo-woo, but I love it. And those are all such big pieces. Even when I went full-time years ago, I was doing all these things without realizing it. I didn't really realize, hey, I'm already a big successful wedding photographer, but I was acting like I was, but it wasn't as conscious of a decision. Whereas now I'm like, okay, if this is what I want, and I'm very clear on what I want, then this is how I need to be. So those are so important. Okay, so let's talk about some of the little things. Let's talk about some of the little no-brainer pieces that are also important to go full-time. Okay, I want you to think about what kind of nest egg you need, what kind of savings you need, and what you need to do to get there. Like, what number is going to make you comfortable? For me, it was $10,000. So I knew to quit teaching and to go full-time, I wanted to have about $10,000 in the bank. So that's what I did. The last several months that I was shooting, all my money went into savings. And then luckily when I was a teacher, we get paid for the summer. So I was able to work an entire summer shooting while I was still getting, my teacher paychecks. So that all went to savings. And I knew that my bottom dollar had hit the number that I needed it to hit for me to pay my family. And I know I've mentioned this before, but when I quit, I had to succeed. There has not been a single month where I've not somehow managed to pay my family, because if I don't pay my family, we might lose our house. It's for real. I have to make money and this business has to support my family. There's no exception to that. So that's a lot of pressure. But again, what is more important? What do you really want? Do you want the safety of a day job? Do you want to live the life that you're dreaming? Which one is more important? And for me, I knew that I was willing to take the risk because I know my personality type. Walking through all the worst case scenarios. Okay, worst case scenario, my business fails. Okay, I'll sell some crack on Craigslist. I'll go back to waiting tables. I'll get another job. I just have always operated off of what I really want over fear. And I've always kind of been a risk taker. But I know that that's harder for some people, right? What else are little important pieces? Obviously, talking it over with your family or your spouse, making sure that you have a plan for health insurance, for all of those little moving parts that are important, but they can be done. I know plenty of single women who own their own business and pay for their health insurance, or husband and wife teams that pay for their own health insurance. Everything you need to know is out there, and it's probably on Google. Every answer that you need to help yourself go full-time is out there. You know what? I even Googled, what do you need to do before you go full-time in your business? I was Googling things like that before I quit my day job. And let me tell you actually a really important thing that I discovered. And it was timing is everything. And if you find that you're having a significant amount of momentum in your business and you have this window of opportunity to quit your day job, and you don't take it, you might lose that growth spurt in your business. And I totally believe that because I was doing really well when I quit my day job. And my following year was one of the best years that I've had because I really, really jumped in full force when I had that business momentum. But had I not jumped then and stayed, I could have lost that momentum. So timing really is important. And if you feel your business having growth spurts, you might want to really lean into that. Lean into the growth spurt versus, just playing it safe or I'm not ready yet, because you could lose a lot of that. Not that you can't get it back. Like, I believe that we are in full control of the success of our business, but that was just something that really resonated with me that I read on the Google machine when I was trying to go full time. So that's a little bit about my journey. I did it in 2.5 years from the time I picked up my camera until the time that I quit teaching. Yes, I think that's faster than a lot of people, but I wanted to get from point A to point B. And, we were able to live off of my teacher salary. So every penny that I made from my photography business, I was able to put right back into investing in it. So, where a lot of people are making money and they're putting it into their family right away, I was able to make money and put it right back into the business. So I probably made and spent close to $30,000 those first 2 years. So when I was ready to quit teaching, I didn't have to buy any more gear, or at least nothing, huge. I had already kind of had my website in place, my promo video. I had done all the investing already. So I knew that when I pulled that plug and I stopped teaching, that I wouldn't have any of these major expenses over my head. So that really helped me too, just being really clear on that part. So yeah, that's my story of going full time. And I had my eye on the prize. So I had my eye on May of, I believe it was 2015. The entire school year, I just knew, okay, well, if I'm doing okay in May, and the closer it got, the more serious I got. And when it was like 2 months out, it was like, okay, it's go time. I got to make this decision, right? So I just did it. And I knew that I had played out my worst case scenarios and that I would be okay, that we would be okay if I failed. And that's half the battle. It's just knowing what's your plan if you do fail. You get back up and you keep trying and you keep working at it. So it all comes down to how important is it? How bad do you want to achieve those dreams? Okay, I hope this was helpful. If you are looking to take your business full time, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear if you're going to go and set a quit date. Let me know. And thank you so much for listening. And my Shine Elite students, I appreciate you so much. I really, really enjoy doing this work and hearing from you guys and breaking down those goals and all that good stuff. Okay, present day me again. I'm super excited to share Jessica's reflection with you. I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now. And I just asked her to share things, that she's really thinking about looking at the year behind her and that first year full time and some of the things that, have gone through her mind. And she talks a lot about reflecting and having gratitude. It's so, so good. So here is Jessica.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Norrell and I'm the owner of Mosen Solutions, and I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of being a solo entrepreneur. And I was so thankful that Liz asked me to kind of do this quick segment for her podcast, because it's about that time where as a business owner, you sit back and look on the past year and you just assess where you are. Now, truthfully, I do this every month. I reflect on what that month has looked like, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great. But I'm really thankful to be able to do this because I'm able to practice one of the things that I would recommend to other entrepreneurs coming into this space, which is focus on gratitude. So if you've taken this step in your business, Sometimes it might be because you're on a new journey in your personal life. You left a job that maybe you weren't happy with, or you've just taken on something that like really fulfills your heart. And I think reflecting on a monthly basis or even a quarterly basis on the things that you are grateful for is really, really important because you're able to look back on those and feel a sense of accomplishment or gratitude or fulfillment. And that can only help propel your vision and where you want to continue to grow or go with your business. So, the first step I think that I would say or give to somebody is when you do this, it can become very lonely, but focus on the positives of why you're doing what you're doing and focus on the positive outcomes that have come from doing what you're doing. I'd say the next thing, and this is really, really, really important, is finding a network or an accountability group that supports you and your business. Thankfully, through Liz, I was able to work with the Shine Elite and Shine the Light group, and I had a built-in group for over a year. So when I launched my business, I had the support there. So I could box friends late at night and tell them what was going on in my business, whether it was for advice or just like bouncing ideas off. It was really important to have somebody that I could turn to in the first year because honestly, when you go into business by yourself, if you don't have a team, it is just you. It is you, your thoughts, your clients, and not having somebody to kind of talk to about, the next steps or things that come up in your business can make it very lonely. So I was very blessed to have a really strong network prior to starting my business, and I would recommend that if you're thinking about going down this path, that you take some time to network with the community that you want to grow in. Even if you're not full-time or planning on going full-time, it's just really nice to have that sisterhood or that brotherhood of accountability built in before you take the leap. The next one is probably written for me if I ever did this again. And it revolves around money fears or money mindset. And I was definitely one of those people, and this is something that Liz helped me work through, that I felt like I needed to have A, B, and C in place. And for me, A, B, and C was, student loans paid off, X amount in a savings account, X amount set up prior to starting my full-time entrepreneurship. And in working with Liz, she helped me to break down kind of some of those mindset blocks that I had, and realize that, I had everything in place that I needed. It was just taking the jump. And so for those out there who are kind of like me, that money fear might hold you back from making that leap. One of the things that I did to help me move past that was in Excel or Google Sheets, I built a kind of just a simple income sheet. And I projected what 1 year of working for myself looked like. I didn't have all of that money already lined up. I had about 6 months of clients locked in, and I projected out to a year. And seeing that on paper and realizing that if I could put my time and energy full time into the business, I had income lined up. And it happened. Like, I served my clients that I needed to for the first part of the business, and I built on top of that. I got new clients and I continued to grow. And not that I still don't have fears about revenue streams, but now those fears are, hey, I'm supporting myself, and now how do I build the business to bring somebody else on to help support them and continue to scale the business? So again, if you have a fear of how your business can grow, find a place to start that you're comfortable with, and then build off of that and keep your vision of your business, whether it's monetary or building clients, like a number, keep it forward thinking. Don't get stuck in what you have right now. Think about what you can do in 6 months, what you can take on in 12 months, and constantly push your mind to keep thinking forward, and don't get stuck in the what ifs. And this next piece of advice actually comes from my husband. It was a lesson I learned about a month ago. So throughout this pandemic, I've gained some clients, I've lost some clients, just because everybody's business is in a different spot right now. And I got an email from a network that I'm with, and they were looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z job for part time, like 8 hours per week. And I told my husband, I was like, well, I should take this on. 8 hours per week isn't a lot. And that's just an extra, bit of revenue for us right now when we're kind of in the midst of this pandemic. And he looked at me and he said, is this something that's going to build the business or build you? Like, is it going to give you another skill? And I was very easily able to say no. It was not going to help our business. It was not going to give me another skill that I needed. And I didn't apply for the job. And 2 weeks later, another opportunity presented itself that was going to help my business and help build a skill within our business. So don't be afraid to look at opportunities, even if it's something that's going to help. My friend Sharon says this very well. If it's something that's going to put food on the table and you need it, then absolutely think about it in that way. But if you have the food on the table and you're in a space to push yourself to grow, don't take every opportunity that comes your way. It's okay to say no and ask yourself, is it going to build you? Is it going to build your business? And if you can't answer that clearly, then it's a hard pass. You want it to be in alignment with how you want your business to grow. And then the last thing is probably a controversial topic, but it has to do with outsourcing. I believe this when I first started the business, and I still am very rooted in this now, is that if you cannot afford to outsource, don't get caught up in thinking you have to outsource everything right away. I believe as a business owner that you should know how to work the operations of your business so that when you are able to outsource, you know how to guide the next person on how to do the basic things and then let them up level whatever it is that they're going to be doing. But you at least need to know the basics of your business. Now, I'm simply talking about outsourcing, very basic things like putting receipts in your accounting system. You don't need somebody to do that your first year of business. You can do that yourself. Do you want to do your own taxes? Maybe not. That's okay to outsource. Like the things that you have zero skills in, definitely consider working with other people to outsource. But the things that you are skilled at, that you can do, but you maybe just don't want to do, you got to do that your first year. You got to suck it up, wear all the hats, and then when you're ready financially and you are stable enough to bring on somebody consistently or as a 1099, then you can pass that task off. But I'm a firm believer in you should wear the hats in your business until your business is ready to financially support that role for the business. Thanks, Liz, for having me on, and I appreciate passing on the advice.
Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, so full transparency here. I wanted to wait until I was sitting at my desk working on this podcast episode to fully listen and take in what Jessica sent over. And this was so powerful, and it brought up so many little things for me. When she talked about outsourcing, I am a classic example of someone who kind of outsourced because I thought I had to. This is in the beginning, right? This is a couple of years ago. I actually hired like an online business manager years ago. And I didn't even know like how to delegate to her. And we tried a couple things and nothing really worked. And I wasn't ready, but I just was like, I need to outsource because that's what successful business owners are doing. So like, oh my gosh, she is speaking so much truth there. And I know that I am, one of those people that definitely encourages outsourcing as much as possible, but she's so right that we need to have our systems in place, even if they're messy, right? Like I shared with you guys how I'm screen recording myself doing a lot of different tasks, but those are tasks that I do repeatedly and know how to do. So it's so easy to pass that off. I was making the mistake of trying to outsource things that I didn't know how to do. So I didn't know how to tell someone how to do it. And that works sometimes with an expert, right? Like in web design, but that does not work when it comes to like your business management. So thank you, Jess, for bringing that up. And I love that topic, and we'll have to save that for a little bit of a deeper dive. I'm going to be bringing Jess on the podcast to have her own episode where we can dig deeper into these, because this was so good. And I want you guys to hear all about her and Mazen Solutions and what she does. And then my other note was the saying no piece. Yay, I was fist pumping and applauding her husband, because that's so true. And, it is really easy for us to see dollar signs and not compare it to another opportunity. But Jessica has done such a good job of learning how to follow her intuition a little bit more, because she's, very logical. She's very numbers driven. And, we had to work on her following her intuition and trusting a little bit, and see how 2 weeks later an even better opportunity came across. And she might not have been able to take that had she taken the other one for 8 hours a week. So Jessica, I absolutely freaking love that reflection, and you have grown so much. And I just, wanted to share also that when Jessica and I were working together, she at first couldn't visualize going full time. And, she was helping me and a couple other creative entrepreneurs. And it is not quite the industry that she's in. And, she was like, I'm going to need so many clients. Like, this doesn't feel possible. And I just remember, these are like the moments that I remember. And I was like, your business doesn't have to look like everyone else's. Like, if you need to make X amount of money or a salary, why don't you focus on getting 3 clients that can pay you substantially more than what I could pay or what another, up and coming creative entrepreneur could pay? Yes, we love you and we need you, but what if you were more of a consultant or took on much, much, much bigger clients that will pay more, that you'll get more steady hours, that will sign long-term contracts? What would that look like? And she just flipped a switch and completely figured it out. And, that's very kind of her to give me credit in her words. But Jessica is definitely her own, motivator, and she's extremely self-motivated is what the word I'm looking for. And I'm just so proud of her. I'm so honored to call her my friend. She helped me with all my Shine the Light launches last year. She's been such a big piece in creating a lot of those systems in my business. And I just love you to death, Jessica. Thank you for sharing that with us. I look forward to bringing you on the podcast for your own episode. And if you guys are interested in Shine Elite, which is the program that Jessica did, we are going to be starting again in November. So I have lots of time to get the information to you, but the seats will fill up quickly. So if you're interested in being a Shine Elite student, just reach out to me or visit the website at elizabethhenson.co. And guess what, you guys? We are just about ready to have the show notes over there. This has been a long time coming, but I needed to migrate the podcast home base from my Elizabeth Henson Photos website over to my elizabethhenson.co website. And my amazing web designer, Katie Harrington, just finished it up. So I'm hoping we'll get this episode in the show notes. It'll be at elizabethhenson.co/podcast, and you'll be able to find it there. And you can find Jessica there and all the good show notes, all the things, right? I know we don't always use the show notes, but I really just like having a home for each episode, because podcasts, they live on, like a blog post, right? They live on forever. Whereas a social media post, it gets pushed down and it goes away and nobody ever pays attention to it. But, my podcast people will find and they will binge listen. So I really like kind of having a home base for each episode. So I'm really excited to get that up and running. We should have that taken care of this week. But for now, you can go to elizabethhenson.co/podcast. There's plenty of opportunities to contact me from the website, and we can get you all set up for Shine Elite. Thank you guys so much for listening. I love you, and I will see you next week.